seen the economic framework of the budget. The first part of the economic framework, from where the money comes, from where the money goes. I've give you a very comprehensive outlook, like whatever needed in the budget. Rest you need to read from the static sources. Coming to the taxation part. Now, first you can see here that taxation is written as an economic glue that has been said by the economic survey. When they talk about that, taxation is the glue that holds the state and the citizen together. You must have read about social contract theories. If not in your optional, then in your ethics paper given by Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. They say that it is the citizen and the state, they come together and they form a social contract. That state will provide them protection, provide them services, and on the other hand, the citizen will give some part of its freedom to the state. In one of the part, if we see that freedom in an economic domain, that is taxation. So citizen pays money to the state in the form of the taxation, and the state provides him him or her all the infrastructure, the schools, the health, the roads, right? So that is the infrastructure provided by the state. Now, economic survey argues that this taxation, it is a taxation which holds citizen, make state accountable, right? When this citizen thinks that a part of my hard-earned money is taken by the state, citizen will think that I should make the state accountable. For example, recently conducted elections in the Delhi, the Mr. Kejriwal has provided many freebies to the people. Many, for example, 200 till 200 unit electricity free of cost. So some of the citizens have told, when asked upon, do you like this regime? So they said, why not? We are the taxpayer. We have paid money to the state. We are paying money to the government. We are paying money through taxation. We deserve it. We deserve better roads. We deserve better hospitals. We deserve better schools. We deserve these kinds of um, income support or my financial support from the government. It will help us because we are paying tax. Not directly, if not directly, indirectly. If you're buying a biscuit, if you're buying a chocolate, if you're buying a laptop, then you are paying some sort of indirect tax on everything. You go in the hotel, you eat, you are paying indirect tax. Then if someone is paying tax, then they deserve better services and they'll make the state accountable. Also, state survey repeatedly argues in the state of they talk about the urban local bodies and the local government bodies. We'll discuss everything as a theme-wise economic surveys there. So they talk about that because of the low taxation power of these local level bodies, these bodies are not performing well. When they do not collect tax from the citizen do not feel obliged to make them accountable. And on the other hand, these local bodies also become very weak. They also feel what to need to take tax if you are getting all the money from the state or the central government. Right? We will see that. So the economic survey argues that we should have a good regime of direct tax. So in this background, we will see the background in which all the proposal has come. As an UPSC aspirant, we need to focus on the broader issues because all the details in the budget are not too much important. We'll discuss a few details. We'll discuss details, but the more important on which background this all is coming, right? The first background is taxation is an economic glue. Second background, you can see not background, but it's been quoted by the finance minister in his speech that some Sanskrit sloka and the meaning the Surya sun collects vapor from the little drops of water, so does the king. They give it back copiously. They collect only for the people's well-being of people. So she is giving a moral high ground why the taxation is taken. She's saying the taxation is taken overall for the well-being of the people, just to give a normative outlook to the idea of taxation, right? You can use this quote in your essay or whenever um, you can use in ethics or something in Raghuvamsha from Kalidas, right? However, given this normative framework, what is the reality? Apart from the normal issues, last year a CCD founder was found dead, and one of the letters he has allegedly accused of the tax terrorism, the harsh way of the tax officials of collecting tax, right? So we will see a lot of provisions in the budget, the taxpayer charter, the faceless appeal system, Vivad se Vishwas scheme. These are there to make taxation a relatively faceless and human, uh, like divide of the human emotions, make it a more um, faceless system, so that no human discretion is there at the time of dealing with the people. So the people also feel confident. There should be a uniform system, universal system, right? Let's before going through the proposals, I'll discuss the rationale behind those proposals that came from various recommendations. I'll discuss two sources, two very credible sources. First, Niti Aayog action agenda that has replaced planning commission. So that action agenda, you can see that action agenda is ending this year. They will come up with another document. So what are the priorities they have laid out for the country? One of the priority was chapter 17 with respect to taxation policy and administration. It's a very good document, very small document. If you want to augment your mains knowledge, you can use that. Very good facts and all is there. We'll discuss about the taxation policy and administration. So first thing they say about corporate tax. One second. So first thing they talk about corporate tax. So corporate tax regimes require rationalization and simplification. So what basically they are saying, but in India, because that was framed in 2016-17. So okay, first of all, what the biggest cut in the budget, what the biggest announcement in the budget, it was announced last year, but the main thing was done that corporates rates were slashed from around 34% to 22% and 15% for the new manufacturing and the power sector. We will see that. So I'm setting the background. For example, Niti Aayog is saying that at that time earlier, our overall corporate tax was around 33.84%. However, there were many deductions. So finally, no, this was the final amount. However, the collection rate of they have sampled for this 5 lakh companies, they finally came to conclusion that finally we are getting the money only for this percent, 24.67%. This is the final realization. If we put again into the percentage form, this is the final amount that we are getting. Though ideally our tax rate for the everyone it seems to be like this, but what we are getting money only this one. So this uh, around 10% gap is there, but perception is that India is a highly taxed country. So what are the implications? They say that it discourages investment and in growth. They say that there is a problem of vertical inequity also. For example, very good example they have given. For example, a company having profit up to 1 crore, they pay average tax from around 30%. The company which is having only 1 crore of profit, it is paying around 30% of tax, whereas the company which has a profit of more than 500 crores, 500 times more than that, is paying only 22%, 23%. So that is against the principle of the equity of the direct tax, of the taxation system. The progressive nature of the taxation, that is against it. For example, if you are earning more, then you should pay more taxes. That is the idea of progressive taxation, right? So what they recommended, that they said first of all that we should eliminate the various corporate exemptions. First thing they have recommended in 3 years. Then they said that this should be accompanied by a reduction in the corporate tax rate from 34% to 25% for all companies. They said that this should be accompanied by reduction of corporate tax rate from 34% to 25%, including surcharges and the cesses for all the companies. So this was the recommendation. Now you see what government did. Government slashed all the corporate rates. Now we are one of the very on the lower threshold, lower parameters. You can see after Thailand 20%, India 24%, and earlier we were very highly taxed. So you can see we have jumped so much, very radical reform we have taken, right? That was recommended by the Niti Aayog and on the other panels also, right? Next proposal by Niti Aayog with respect to personal income tax. So first of all, they said that our base is very narrow. So we need to improve the base. Number of taxpayer has to be increased. One very interesting recommendations they have given. However, the tax slab corresponding to the lowest taxes should be expanded. So ensure that the tax liability of the lower income individual does not increase suddenly with the growth of their nominal incomes. For example, I'm telling you that's a relatively typical language. So basically what they're saying that, for example, we'll see from 2.5 to 5 lakhs, you are taxed only 5%. But to just you cross 5% more, 5 lakh to 7.5 or 10 lakh, you'll charge 20%. So there's a sudden jump from 5% to 20%. So she said, the economic survey said, or the Niti Aayog said that we should be smooth. That suddenly there should not be a lot of taxation pressure on them. Then there will be tendency to do some stuff, do something or the other to reduce their, to not to showcase that they have crossed that 5 lakh limit. We will see that. With respect to this taxation, Economic Survey 2017-18, a very good chapter is there. You should read this. Ease of doing business, next frontier, timely justice. They are also in the chapter in between, they talked about taxation issue. Apart from the other issues, we'll see that in the coming lectures. But one issue they talked about, the taxation. For example, you can see the taxation cases here. So these are, they take more than 5.5 years to finish, and you can see number of cases also. So these are data from 5 high courts, right? So number of taxation cases are too much. For example, you see here at the income tax appellate tribunal, this much case, this much money is pending, this much money at high court pending, this much at Supreme Court, and the same with the indirect tax, similar with the indirect tax. All these cases are done by either by tax officials that you're not paying tax, so I'll put a case on you. Taxation, that the tax terrorism wala taxism thing, that goes to the extreme level, but tax litigations are increasing. That is why it is said that government is the biggest litigant in the judiciary. For example, you see here the petition rate and the success rate. The economic survey is showing that the petition, the tax official are petitioning too much. At the end, their just success rate is very less. That goes to show that they are petitioning not for the sake of, not all the genuine cases are there. For example, I'll tell you that there is some small issue. So the tax official does not want to use his discretion to resolve it on its or at his level. Rather, he will say that if he uses discretion and later on something fishy is there, then he can be held accountable. Now what is happening? He says, okay, I'll go for the litigation. What is my view? I'll get retired in after 5 years or something. I have just passed the buck to the next one. I just filled the appeal in the courts and then I have no issue. So the tendency not to take the leadership role, not to resolve the issue then and there, the officials are doing just they are filing the cases in the courts, in the tribunals and the courts. And this cases, they also not only filing. If the case rules against them in the tribunal, they go to the high court. If not high court, they go to Supreme Court. So that's what the economic survey is saying, that tax officials are doing it, and we need to revamp it. And the result of this is, because of so many stuck cases, around 4.7% of India's GDP is stuck in these courts. Around this, so these are just indicative figures. 4.7% of GDP. Can you imagine that? A lot of money is stuck in these cases. That is why the economic survey recommended some steps. We'll see that later on, to give the timely justice. If this much is stuck there, you can imagine what will be the perception going to the outside investors. All our MOUs that we sign at the investment summit, they are not converting into the ground reality. One time UPSC asked the question that we signed so many MOUs. For example, some investment summit happens, Vibrant Gujarat, Magnificent Maharashtra, right? But they're not turning into the real groundwork, ground money. They're not bringing money to the people. They're not bringing money to the infrastructure. Why? These things, these reality strikes to those corporates. First, they see an aspiration, they say, okay, we will do it. They'll sign an MOU, but later on, they just backtrack. And that is what it is one of the reasons. Hence, what Niti Aayog in its action agenda suggested, that we need to improve the tax administration and minimize the tax litigation. So they said that we should scope the review of the interpretation of tax law, reduce the discretion. They've also given this figure, that this pending figure, 8.2 lakh crores, this much is pending. But different figure, I'm just indicative figure I have given. the performance assessment of the tax officials should be done. You can see a key factor behind the increased number of tax disputes is the tendency of the tax official to initiate action without necessary justification or assessment. You can read that, and that has been substantiated by the economic survey later on after 1 year. So it's saying that a key factor behind the increased number of tax dispute is the tendency of the tax official to initiate an action without necessary justification or assessment that I was telling you. This is reflected in the low success rate of 30% they have in the tax appeal filed by the taxpayer across the different courts, right? So these appeals can be filed by both of them. The tax payer can also file and I also file. If they ask for more tax, they cut more tax. If they're not giving the returns on time, then the taxpayer will file the case, and they're not resolving those issues. They're just going into the okay, go to the court, no issue. That has to be improved upon, right? Now we enter into the final budget. I think that information will be really helpful for you, and that is, I think, more relevant rather than the small things. So this was I was saying the existing taxes and the proposed taxes. So earlier it is 5% to 20%, sudden jump. Now they have make it more smooth, right? Now coming to the taxation. So basically, budget proposed two systems in the income tax. We are telling first, this says that you have two options. First, you can, and this is the optional, it is known as the optional new slabs they have offered to people. Like in corporates, in the income tax, there are so many deductions. So many deductions are there from a TC and so many other small insurance deductions and so many other deductions are there. So they said two options. First option is you go with the old regime, no issue. And the new option they have given, they have slashed all the rates. You can see 20% to 10%, 20% to 15, 13 this, 13 this. But here you cannot get the deductions. You will get no benefit of the deductions. They are saying that. So on the one hand, they are giving the option that okay, you want to go with the old scheme with the deductions, you want deductions, okay, go fine, go ahead. There is another optional scheme for you that you can take this. Basically, if you see a long-term agenda government, the long-term government wants to remove all the deductions. They want to make the income tax a very smooth affair. This may seems to be a relatively tricky that they have given two options, but in my opinion, later on they will go ahead with this removing all the deductions, and they will bring a very simple uh, taxation scheme so that the discretion of the tax official is reduced. You can see, in order to simplify the income tax, I have reviewed all the exemptions. This is Nirmala Sitharaman speaking, the Honorable Finance Minister. So she's saying that it was surprising to know that currently more than 100 exemption reduction of the different nature are provided in the Income Tax Act. I have removed around 70 of them in the new simplified regime. This is the new simplified regime she's talking about, right? Next, coming to the announcement of dividend distribution tax. Now, what is a dividend distribution tax? So basically, a company is there, it makes some profit and it wants to give the dividends to its shareholders. Shareholders, right? So currently it's written, currently the company is required to pay DDT on the dividend paid to the shareholder at 15% plus surcharges and cesses. So ultimately, effectively, it boils down to around 20%. You don't have to go too much into number. Around 20% tax is taken on the dividends. For example, you have the share of particular company. Now they are having a profit and they declare dividend for the shareholders. I think that is more you can, if you're not getting it, you need to see in your finance chapter of your economy. So 20% they are getting currently. They have to pay 20% tax. But the new government has said we are abolishing it. We are abolishing it. They are saying that what need to be done. For example, companies pays dividend for 1,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees, for example. So this 1 lakh rupee will be added to the shareholder's income, and depending upon the income, he will pay the income tax. Wherever he is be in that slab, he will pay the income tax. For example, I have a salary of 50,000. If I get a dividend of 1 lakh rupees, so that 50,000 over the period of 1 year, for example, 6 lakh plus 7 lakh of dividend tax will be included. Dividend will be included, and total money will be, my total portfolio will be 7 lakh. and according to that slab I have to pay the tax, income tax. That's simple, very simple, right? So this is, they are removing dividend distribution tax. Why? Because many of the people have complained that whatever they were tax they were giving here, the tax, for example 20% tax they were giving here, for example low income group, for example I am earning only 3 lakh rupees yearly, and I am getting 1 lakh of dividend distribution, dividend 1 lakh dividend I got. Understand it very logically. 3 lakh is my income. I am getting 1 lakh of dividend. Now, first in the first regime, what I have to go, I have to give tax here. So 20,000 I have to give here, and here I am almost exempt, right? For example, here I will just have to pay only 5% of the 50,000 that I'm crossing. But so you have to pay this much tax additional. Now in the new regime, what will be done? This 1 lakh will be added to my 3 lakh, so I'll have 4 lakh of tax liability, and then I will pay only 5% on it after deducting 2.5 lakhs, because till 2.5 there is no tax. So only 1.5 lakh I'll be taxed, and I'll be taxed only 5%. So ultimately the tax burden on the investor will be reduced logically, right? So this was done to do that. So I propose to remove DTT and adopt the classical system of dividend taxation under the companies would not have to be required to pay DTT. So the tax will not be, earlier the company used to collect tax, like they will give the tax collection at source. They will, for example 1 lakh dividend is there and 20% is the tax, so they will give only 80,000 to me. So 20,000 will be paid by the company to the government. Now the money 1 lakh will be transferred to me, so company work is over. So compliance on the company is also reduced, right? You also imagine the compliance is also very important part. The company has to provide one person, okay, do also collect dividend distribution tax, they have to pay money to that. So they don't have to do that. Now it is an investor, I have to pay. I'm 1 lakh I'm getting, okay, I'll add to my income and I'm done. I'll pay tax on that. Very relatively smooth. Next is the same 15-20% thing they apply to the electricity generation company also. So concessional of 15% to the newly incorporated domestic companies manufacturing sector, which will start manufacturing by this. So if you start manufacturing by this, you can claim that only 15% of the taxation benefit. They've given tax concession to the foreign investor, for example, sovereign wealth fund. For example, UAE sovereign wealth fund is investing in India. So to make it more attractable, sir, tax exemption is given to their interest, dividend, and everything, capital income gain. You need to know in your static portion what is the capital gains tax, what is the dividend distribution I have discussed, because that was more there, right? Next, a very interesting announcement. It was demanded by the startups so much that what is, first of all, we'll discuss this employee stock option plan. So basically what it is that a startup has only, for example, only 10 people and 10 very skillful people. So two things are there. First, startup does not have a large of cash flow, so they cannot pay a very large salary to their people, right, with respect to their skill set. But they know if they work hard in the future, the startup can become a huge company, right, like Facebook and many, Flipkart and all. So they give their employees a stock option. For example, this 100% share are there, we will give you 1% share. So not only the salaries to the skillful employer, but also the stock options. With the stock options, what is happening? They will feel motivated to. They'll feel the ownership, and they will work hard for it also. And for the startup, it is easy. They can reduce their salary and they can give them stock options, right? Something like that. This is the concept. So to attract the retain highly talented employees. So earlier, this was the government used to take the tax on that stock option also. For example, if I'm an owner and you are my employee, I'm giving you some money, so tax was taken on this also. I'm giving you shares, so the taxation was done on that also. But they have said, government has come out and said, no, you don't have. They are saying, I propose to ease the burden of taxation on the employer by deferring the tax payment by 5 years. So that after 5 years they have to pay, or till they leave the company, or when they sell their share, whichever is earliest. So if you're leaving the company, then you will be taxed. Then you sell your shares, then you will be taxed. If you keep on the shares, if you keep on the shares and you keep on working in the same company, you just have to pay after 5 years the tax, right? So then and there you don't have to pay. So it is good for the employees also and for the startups. Next, before next announcement, I want to discuss very brief, because we'll discuss in the theme 2 or theme 3, the nourishing dwarfs to become giants. So this the economic survey 1819 talked about MSME as being dwarfs. Their age is long, they are getting older, but they're not getting taller. They're not developing into a full becoming human, developed human being. They're not becoming that. So they're saying that we have to reorient policy for MSME growth to make them giants. With the age, their height should increase, they should become well built, they should become large companies. And that is a problem faced by the overall manufacturing sector. We'll also see after when we talk about the aspiration budget as an aspirational document, some of the steps taken to for the MSMEs also. So one announcement is done with respect to their tax with their audit. So they are saying that earlier, if your profit is more than threshold, that if your turnover threshold is more than 1 crore earlier, then you have to put some audit people in. For example, business having turnover of more than 1 crore are required to get their books of account audited by an accountant. They have to get their um, accounts audited by an accountant. But the budget proposed. So what happens basically? You become turnover. You don't want to expand. You become 90 lakh only. You okay? If we do 1 lakh, we have to pay additional money to the auditor. We have to do everything for auditing. They have to maintain their books also, right? So their tendency is to become, the tendency is to be okay, we will remain 90 lakh. If you cross the 1 lakh threshold, then we have to, if you cross this 1 lakh threshold, then we have to again do it, again do all this. So they'll remain dwarf with the age. Getting my point? That is one of the reasons. I'm not saying all, there are so many reasons. So they have increased that to 5 crores. So you can, they will think, okay, 4 crore tak I am fine, 5 crore, 4.9 crore we are fine. But till then, it is assumed that till then, the auditing is also needed, right? So till then, they become so huge, 5 crore turnover is there, they'll become huge, so as to incorporate those costs into their profits. So this is being the thought behind that, MSMEs, right? Next, the faceless appeals. The new faceless assessment scheme has been introduced. So I've given you the idea, right? In order to take the reform initiated by the department to the next level to eliminate the human interface and propose the amendment in this to enable faceless appeal on the line of faceless assessment. So assessment appeals all need to be faceless. Less and less human discretion should be there. Reformation in the taxation administration. Like last year, Sabka Vishwas scheme, I hope you have done that because that was in last year budget. This year they come up with a Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. What is the background? Background I've told you. The economic survey, everything, the tax appeal and Niti action and recommendations. So Vivad Se Vishwas scheme is there. So this scheme will become important for prelims. So with this scheme, what they want to do, that earlier they have done Sabka Vishwas scheme for reducing the litigation in the indirect taxes. This Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, with this scheme, they are doing it for the direct taxes. So they are proposing that the taxpayer would be required to pay only the amount of the disputed tax and will get the complete waiver of interest and penalty, provided he pays by 31st March 2020. For example, I have to pay 1 lakh rupees as a tax. Now I appealed in the court. So it may happen I can win, and it may happen that I may lose. If I lose, I have to pay the tax and the tax of that time. I have the time taken, and I have to pay for the penalty or something. So they are making, government is incentivizing those people like me. For example, I just put a case in the court just because, just the sake of putting it. Many people do that. So they are saying, giving them option, okay, it's fine if you done that. We don't want vivad with you. We don't want disputes with you. You are our citizen. We trust you. Trust us also. That vivad se vishwas. Let us create trust between us rather than disputes between us. Right? The state citizen contract, the economic glue. Let's strengthen that glue. Okay, so that is why this scheme has come. And they have said that if you avail this scheme by 31st March by 2020, within a month or so, then only you'll get this waiver. This scheme will continue till 3 more months, till 30th June. April, May, June, 3 more months, but there you have to pay relatively more. So if they get money before 31st March, their budget, their revenue is also increased, so they can bridge their fiscal deficit, right? And they will show it in the revised estimate in the next year. And next, what about taxpayers charter? Now we have heard about citizens charter. Now this is a taxpayers charter. So any tax system requires a trust between taxpayers and the administration. This will be possible only if the taxpayers' rights are clearly enumerated. So just like a citizen charter where everything is written, for example, the standard of service, the grievance redressal. So that is why they want to make a taxpayers charter to reduce every allegation made on the government of for the tax terrorism and high-handedness of the tax officials. Right? Next reform is instant PAN through Aadhaar. So if you have Aadhaar card, you don't have to fill the form of the PAN card. So you can make a PAN card as if you have Aadhaar, PAN shall be instantly allotted online on the basis of Aadhaar without any requirement of paying up the detailed application form. So you don't need additional payment, so that you can do it very quickly. A good reform. So to summarize the tax proposal, so corporate tax 15%, the startups, the MSMEs, right? Another, as I told you, other details are there, but we have just skipped through that, not too much important. So dividend distribution tax we have discussed. Simply in the indirect tax, not too much reforms, just they have said that they will come up with a simplified GST return. That is this one. Simplified GST returns they have come up with, and they have said, for example, one of the problem with the GST has been till now been the overall idea is good, but the returns filing is a very big issue, very big issue. So that takes away a lot of time of the people, of the corporates, or the small MSMEs filing GST. So they are saying that they will come up with a very simplified GST return process, right? Okay, so I think this is the end of our economic framework. Budget as an economic framework, we have seen that. We started with the budget, the key terms. I want to discuss that. Without that, understanding budget becomes a relatively tough, and tough for me also to explain. Without, if you do not know the difference between revenue and the capital, or if you have doubt towards that, it will become a very fruitless exercise explaining the budget, right? So we have seen a budget as an economic framework, the first part, and the second part we talked about taxation. We discussed some ideas, some mains oriented topics also, right? And that is the end of a budget as an economic framework. In the next video, you will see that video we have cut it into two parts. In the next video, you will see the idea of budget as an aspirational document to create our new India 2022. There we'll talk about the pillars of the budget and the different provisions, right? Okay.